Payday 2 is somewhat known for being poorly balanced. Power creep DLC, random buffs and nerfs, horribly overpowered skills that haven't been tweaked since Edition, and the like have all plagued the game for years. At the moment, this is all because of Denka. Well, most likely not entirely because of him, but he is the face of Payday 2's balance as of a couple years ago. Now, if you didn't know, Denka is no longer the face of Payday 2's balance, which leaves the question of who comes next. Well, I'll put my application in with this video. Thanks to the existence of this template on the mod workshop, anyone can quite easily make their own rebalance, albeit only for weapons. Today I want to show you a couple major changes and a couple more minor ones to help make a select amount of weapons more unique and more balanced. Unfortunately, I can't rebalance all 8,000 weapons in this game for this video, but maybe I'll make more changes on my own time. Shotguns are a whole lot of fun, and unfortunately, from an objective point of view, they're kinda shit. First off, damage range multipliers make them feel like trash, and I'll be removing it for every weapon in this video. Honestly, I want to just remove them entirely one day because the system is just so terrible. Second, the change to pellet count was pointless from Val's perspective, and can only make shotguns worse to use, so I'll just be reverting that for every shotgun in the video. Third, everything shotguns can do, snipers do better, and since I'm not touching skills, there's nothing I can do about grays, and by and large, can't really make shotguns have a place in the game. However, there are some shotguns that I want to change. Let's start with the Breaker. The problem with the Breaker is everything. Bad pickup, non-mag shotgun, low ammo reserves, yeah, not a good gun. The change I want to make is to turn the Breaker into a special killing weapon, because nothing like it really exists for the shotgun category. For that, I want to give it big damage, and I'll also counter that by lowering the total ammo. It's quite a simple change, but it makes the Breaker unique. It's still not something you can use like the Yzma, but if you want a dozer dead, this gun is extremely satisfying for that, at least from my testing. Since the Breaker can't really be used as a primary, I want to make changes for a certain secondary shotgun, and that's the Street Sweeper. Technically, there's nothing wrong with the Street Sweeper, but when you compare it to the single Goliath, well, it's just the same gun but with a longer reload. I want to model it more similarly to the Predator and M1014 primaries. Even though I'm buffing the damage to 60-ish, it still has a place compared to the Goliath, because the Goliath can output damage and reload instantly. Another change I want to do is to lower the ammo capacity and pickup, since without doing that, it's just a better version of the primary shotguns I based it on. Now there exists a reason to use the Street Sweeper over the Goliath other than just feeling like it. I always found the Street Sweeper to be a satisfying shotgun, and these changes make it more satisfying. The final shotgun I want to touch is the Stakeout. I guess the original idea was Yzma for concealed builds and Stakeout for unconcealed, but like, the Yzma is still better when not concealed, and the VD12 just does everything better than the Stakeout anyway. Giving the Stakeout purpose is actually quite easy, and it just needs you to commit to the whole unconcealed thing. Stakeout shouldn't be used concealed at all, and to make it more appealing than the Yzma, give it a whiff more damage and a bunch more ammo. The issue with unconcealed shotguns, and specifically the Stakeout, is that they don't do enough damage to clear enemies safely. Without crits, Zerk is the only option, and having a bit more damage will allow the Stakeout to two-shot heavies without Underdog, as long as you dish out the points for shotgun impact aced. Since unconcealed builds generally have the ICTV, and therefore tougher times collecting ammo, that's where the ammo buff comes in. I also found that having much more ammo allows you to hold the fire button longer, making actual use of the drum magazine. And speaking of the drum magazine, I'll also bump the pickup to complement the capacity. After all, why have one if you can't fill it up? Now you can spread suppressive fire without having to fret over being completely empty on ammo. Those are all the shotgun changes I want to make, at least right now. Can I balance more, such as nerfing Goliaths, VD12s, Yzma, Judge, and buff double barrels, GSPS, and Locomotive? Sure, almost every shotgun has something wrong with it, but I want to get to a variety of weapon classes, so let's keep moving. I mentioned that snipers are better than shotguns in basically every way, and they are. The reason is because of how Graze works, and there's nothing I can really do about that. However, there are some snipers I want to change. The only sniper I want to make a major change to is the Nagant. It's just not very good among the other sniper rifles. It doesn't have the concealment to match the Desert Fox, it doesn't have the ammo capacity and mag size of the R93, and it's not a free weapon like the Platypus. There's no good reason for the Nagant to exist in its class, so let's just change the class. I want to drop the Nagant into the 200 damage class, where it will only compete with a range hitter. Whereas the range hitter is a single reload with a big magazine, the Nagant can reload its entire small magazine at once. This makes them somewhat similar, such that choosing between them is more preference. That said, the change between classes comes with more than just a damage change, which you can see on screen. Overall, this converts the Nagant from useless weapon to bring just to bring, into a niche choice that is optimal for specific setups. The rest of the changes to sniper rifles I'll make are going to be minor, so there's no gameplay footage for them. Whenever I tried them, they played almost identically to how they were before the changes, and that's because the changes I made were more based on theory than practice. The Grom sits in a weird spot because it's a worse contractor unless you want concealment. However, if you do want concealment, the Grom is just a better choice because the accuracy is very high relative to the other 168s. The change I want to make is quite simple, and it's just to lower the accuracy a bit and increase the concealment. Now it's an easier choice for when you want concealment, as long as you can accept the lower accuracy. Another minor change I want to make is for the R93. In case you didn't know, it was shadow buffed in update 235 to have 60 rate of fire. Now it's just better than the Platypus in every way. Reverted. Simple enough. Lastly, I want to touch on the Thanatos. I want to increase the damage. This may seem stupid, but the fact that the Thanatos can't one-shot minigun dozers is goofy, so might as well just repair that. I could make other changes, but sniper rifles will never really be balanced as long as Graze exists. These changes do make the more underused sniper rifles a bit more appealing, or at least I hope they do. So the LMGs. Honestly, they're fine. I just want to change the KSP-58 to compete with the other ones. If you have the other LMG DLCs, the KSP-58 is worse than your other options. I want to give it some purpose for those who have the DLCs, and so I made it a middle ground between the KSP and Buzzsaw. To be more like the KSP, I'll trim a bit off the reload, and to be more like the Buzzsaw, I'll add some fire rate. And of course, I removed the damage range multipliers. Overall, the LMG feels very similar to how it used to be, but the DPS is higher if you wanted to make use of it. Rifles, where to start? These are all more or less the same weapons, but there are some that stick out like sore thumbs, so let's give them some major changes. The JP36 has no redeeming qualities aside from cool looking skins. It has good stability, but not great accuracy. I just balanced those out a bit. The reload speed is also garbage, so I'll increase that. The major change I want to make is for it to be more SMG-like. It's a kind of small gun, has high ammo capacity, and somewhat low damage. To turn it into an SMG, I'll just increase the rate of fire and mag capacity, and boom, SMG. It's got quite a unique feel, and I'm happy with it. If you put a gun to my head and asked for the worst rifle in the game, I'd probably say the Commando 553. If I had more time to give it thought, maybe not, but the point is that the 553 sucks. It's like the JP36, but doesn't have access to a speed pull. Might as well give it the SMG treatment too. However, I don't want it to be the same as the JP36, so I'll give it some more rate of fire, but a smaller magazine. Overall, it feels good, but I did notice something on this gun more than any other. The rate of fire change doesn't carry over to the animation and sounds, so it does seem a little jarring if you pay too much attention. Let's go over the smaller changes I want to make. The Eagle Heavy is bad. It has one redeeming quality, and that's good accuracy and stability. However, if you consider all the other rifles in the 100 damage class, the Eagle Heavy lacks concealment, reload speed, and pickup. The change I made is to make it more of a heavy weapon, and it just has more ammo and pickup. Also in the 100 damage category, the AK-17. The gun is just too good at everything. Factoring how good it is, I just lowered the pickup a smidge, as well as crippling the concealment. Stop putting crits on this already absurd gun. Well, you still can if you really want to, but not with those extremely original AK-17 Mark X combos. Lastly, I want to touch on the Lion's Roar, arguably the best rifle in the game. Ever since it was buffed, it's kinda too good at everything. I lowered everything, but the big hit was for ammo capacity. The gun still performs well, but for my games with it, it felt marginally more fair to use. Let's move on from turning rifles into SMGs and just look at SMGs. There's a cacophony of these, but they don't really need as much repairs as the other weapons. There exist the speed pull SMGs on top, and everything else below them. I'm not really going to be doing anything about said speed pulls, so I'll just point out two SMGs here. Let's start with the Micro Uzi. This is already a pretty good SMG, and one of my favorites. However, the lack of speed pull and pitiful accuracy warrant a slight buff. That, and I want to remove damage range multipliers for it, but don't tell anyone. Anyway, I'm not touching the reload speed, but I will increase the accuracy. Currently, the Micro Uzi loses out to the Wasp in almost all cases, and the handling on the Wasp isn't really even that bad, so more accuracy on the Uzi can't hurt. One of the most radical changes I will make in this video is going to be for the Cobra SMG. It's just a really uninteresting gun, but unlike the similar Blaster, it can't be modified to look like a monstrosity. I want to do something similar to the Breaker and turn it into a special killer. More damage and more fire rate to give it crazy high DPS. However, I also want this big damage to occur at close ranges, so I lowered the stability and accuracy. Also, the magazine capacity needs to be lowered, but since this illogical magazine extension exists, I'm just gonna make the gun have 0 mag capacity by default, such that the magazine extension is a requirement. I'll also increase the concealment to counter the cost of the magazine. This is a super roundabout solution, but hey, don't worry about it. Also, I obviously lowered the pickup in capacity. It's a fun gun, but honestly still not something I would use. Now, there are a few categories left to go over, and that's akimbo, pistols, and specials. Akimbo changes are going to be very, very easy and very, very boring, so I'm just not doing them. All the akimbo need their stats cut, like all of them. The strangest part is, despite having 2 of the same gun, the concealment is the same as just having 1. You can go ahead and do all these changes on your own, but I sure as hell won't. Next up are the pistols, which are just real bad. Changing pistols to make them compete with other weapons just isn't possible. You can't hold your mouse to fire them, their pickup isn't amazing, their stats are less than stellar, the damage output doesn't really matter, they just aren't good. I don't use them outside of the 5.7, so I don't care enough to make changes to them. However, special weapons, now that's something I can change. The Vulcan minigun is unfortunate, because the microgun is just better. Although the minigun outputs more bullets, they're weaker than those of the microgun. This means that the minigun spends more ammo per enemy, and since it has a faster fire rate, it's easier to overshoot, and again, spend more ammo per enemy. Here's the kicker though. The minigun and microgun have the same pickup. So yeah, unfortunate. The one stat that the minigun does better than the microgun is concealment, funnily enough, so let's just get rid of that and buff the pickup, as well as a bit of a boost to the total ammo. However, one thing that the game overlooks in terms of mag capacity is that miniguns with fully loaded have more than 1 magazine of ammo. That's pretty goofy, so I'll just make the adjustments manually to have the magazine be bigger than the total capacity. The minigun felt much more powerful and satisfying with these changes. Bows, what do I tell you? There's no reasonable way to make bows match other weapons. Similarly to pistols, bows suck by principle rather than by stats. I tried changing the magazine capacity, which is kinda funny, but doesn't do anything in practice. Changing the rate of fire doesn't really do anything either, and the other stats, well, who cares? Let's take a look at the crossbows instead. Crossbows, with the exception of the light crossbow, are not very good. The light crossbow is actually quite handy in several cases. Not good, of course, we aren't in 2017 anymore, but it's not terrible. The heavy crossbow, though, different story. Alright, fuck it. The changes I'm about to make are horribly unbalanced and stupid, but they are funny, and the heavy crossbow is so bad that I don't really care. I originally wanted to make these changes to the airbow since it would kinda make more sense visually, but not many people even have the H3 DLC, so I went with the heavy crossbow to make it more accessible if one of you people watching wants to try it. I made it auto-fire first things first. Second, I increased the max capacity. Third, I made the magazine hold 20 bolts. Fourth, I increased the fire rate by a lot. And finally, to balance this, I made the reload much longer. Yeah, this is extremely stupid, but also very funny. Just be careful to not lose all your bolts and you'll be fine. Overall, it's fun, but really just a novelty. Let's go back to being serious with some explosives and talk about the Commando 101. Everyone knows it's completely broken, but that's mainly because of Bulletstorm. However, the Commando isn't really my concern right now. The HRL sucks. It literally does nothing better than the Commando, aside from killing dozers better, on Death Wish. Not even Death Sentence. So it needs buffs. I want the HRL to stand up to the Commando, and increasing the damage to kill minigun dozers in one shot would be cool, but we've hit a limitation of the rebalance template I'm using. Projectiles like explosives are saved elsewhere, so we'll need to make other changes. Let's just shorten the reload and increase the max capacity by a lot. This will make the HRL more useful than the Commando in setups outside of ammo bags. And when it comes to ammo bags, yeah, the Commando will still be better. I found myself using the HRL sparingly, and it's a shame that the weapon is so horribly outclassed in vanilla. If the template could change explosives, I would have loved to restore the Arbiter to its pre-nerf glory, but alas, there are limitations and there's nothing I can do about it. Those are all the changes I wanted to make today. Hopefully you've noticed that it's not particularly difficult to balance weapons competently and uniquely. I'm quite happy with them, but if this is my application to be Payday 2's lead balancer, I'll need to do something that neither Jules nor Denka did, and that's considering other people's thoughts. How one down and the DMR changes made it into the game is a complete mystery, and throwing darts at random weapons to decide what to buff and nerf, as well as damage range multipliers, will forever perplex me. If you want to try out my changes and drop some feedback in the comments, there will be a download link to this rebalance. Not on the mod workshop, because the word rebalance is basically synonymous with buff, but in the description of this video. Install it the exact same way as any other mod. Also, since I commented each weapon I changed, you could change some of the numbers and try stuff out, or to make epic cheats, whichever you want. And although the changes I made aren't really cheating, only use this mod in your own lobbies. Don't go into pub games with rebalances. Alright? Alright.